I refuse to sit beside someone like her, Gregory Whitman declared, his voice cutting through the first-class cabin before the aircraft door had even closed. Every nearby conversation stopped. A champagne flute paused halfway to a passenger's lips. A flight attendant froze beside the galley. And in seat 1A, Evelyn Brooks slowly lifted her eyes from the tablet resting on her lap. She was 46, dressed in a soft black sweater, tailored gray slacks, and simple leather flats. No diamonds, no designer purse. Nothing about her appearance announced that Horizon Crown Airlines had begun as a sketch in her notebook 20 years earlier. That was intentional. Evelyn had boarded alone to observe how the airline treated passengers when no executive entourage was watching. Gregory stood beside seat 1B in a navy suit that looked freshly pressed. His silver hair combed carefully back, one hand gripping a platinum loyalty card as if it were a badge of command. There must be another seat available, he continued. I paid nearly $10,000 for this ticket. I expect a certain standard. Laura Mills, the lead flight attendant, approached with a practiced smile. Instead of asking Gregory to lower his voice, she glanced at Evelyn as though she were the disruption. Sir, let me check the seating chart, Laura said. Evelyn closed her tablet. There is nothing wrong with the seating chart. Gregory looked at her for the first time. His eyes moved over her sweater, her shoes, and the plain canvas tote beneath the seat. I was speaking to the crew. You were speaking about me? Evelyn replied. Her tone remained low, but it carried through the cabin. A few passengers turned openly toward the aisle. Hannah Cole, a junior flight attendant near the galley, checked the digital manifest on her handheld device. Beside Evelyn Brooks's name was a gold executive code she had only seen during training. Founder access, confidential handling, permanent seat authority. Hannah stepped toward Laura. I think you should review her passenger profile. Laura barely looked at her. Not now, Hannah. It may be important. Return to the galley. Gregory heard the exchange and gave a dismissive laugh. This is exactly what I mean. Someone gets upgraded, dresses however she wants, and suddenly everyone has to pretend she belongs here. Evelyn felt the familiar weight of the words. She had heard them in banks, boardrooms, luxury hotels, and once at an airport lounge where an employee had asked whether she was waiting for someone important. Different rooms. Same assumption. My seat is 1A, she said. My ticket is valid. I will remain where I am. Gregory turned to Laura. Then move me. Laura checked the cabin map. First class is full. Move her to business class. The insult landed without disguise. Hannah looked down at the manifest again, her expression tightening. A woman in row 2 lowered her book. A man across the aisle removed one earbud. Gregory mistook their silence for agreement. This airline claims to understand premium service, he said. Premium service means protecting loyal customers from uncomfortable situations. Evelyn placed the tablet on the armrest. On its screen was a confidential review of Horizon Crown service complaints, including a section on racial bias in premium cabins. Gregory could not see the report. Laura could not see the signature page. None of them knew that Evelyn had boarded to test whether the company she built still honored the standard she had written into its first employee handbook. She looked at Gregory with a calmness that made his smile weaken. You are not uncomfortable because of anything I have done, she said. You are uncomfortable because a black woman is sitting in a seat you believe should belong to someone who looks like you. The cabin went silent. Laura's professional smile disappeared. Hannah held the manifest tightly against her chest. Gregory adjusted his cuff and looked around for support. I never said that. Evelyn did not blink. You did not have to. You asked the whole cabin to act it out for you. Laura recovered first, but the hesitation in her eyes remained. She looked down at her tablet as though the seating chart might offer a solution that required no courage. Gregory stayed beside seat 1B, his platinum card still visible in his hand. His confidence fed by years of people mistaking expense for importance. I asked for another seat, he said. That should not be controversial. Evelyn rested one hand on the closed tablet. Wanting an aisle seat is a preference. Refusing to sit beside me is something else. Gregory gave a short laugh. You are making this about race. No, Evelyn replied. Your demand did that before I spoke. Laura raised one hand between them. Let us keep this calm. We still need to complete boarding. The word calm landed in the wrong direction. Gregory had raised his voice. Gregory had disrupted the cabin. Yet Evelyn was being asked to manage the atmosphere. Hannah noticed it too. She stepped closer with the handheld manifest. Her seat is confirmed, she said. There is no upgrade or reassignment. Laura turned toward her. Hannah, return to the galley. The profile shows executive access. I heard you the first time. Then why are we still discussing whether she belongs here? The question startled Laura more than Gregory's insult had. A junior employee was not supposed to make the hidden logic visible. Gregory looked at Hannah with open irritation. You are here to serve passengers, not lecture them. Hannah's grip tightened around the device. Service does not mean helping one passenger humiliate another. A murmur passed through the cabin. The woman in row 2 spoke without raising her voice. She was seated before he arrived. She did nothing. The man across the aisle nodded. He created the problem. Gregory looked around, surprised that no one was volunteering to protect him from the consequences of his own words. I am a Crown Premier member, he said. I have flown this airline for 16 years. Evelyn looked at the card in his hand. Loyalty status measures spending. It does not measure character. His face hardened. You have no idea who I am. You made sure everyone did. Laura checked the cabin map again. There is one available seat in business class. She looked at Evelyn. We could move you there, refund the fare difference, and provide travel credit. Evelyn studied her carefully. Why would I be compensated for accepting discrimination? Laura's professional tone thinned. I am trying to prevent a delay by moving the person who has not caused one. Gregory leaned closer to Laura. This is exactly the attitude I was talking about. Evelyn turned toward him. My attitude is that I purchased seat 1A and will remain in seat 1A. Prove you purchased it. The words fell harder than his earlier demand. Several passengers reacted at once. Hannah looked down at the manifest, then back at Gregory. Her payment is not your concern. Gregory ignored her. People get complimentary upgrades all the time. Maybe she knows someone. Maybe she found a way into a seat she could not otherwise afford. Evelyn felt an old memory rise, sharp and unwelcome. She was 28, standing at a hotel desk after closing the first major financing agreement of her career. The clerk had looked at her credit card, then at her face, and asked whether the account belonged to her employer. She had shown identification, then a second identification, then watched 2 white men check in without being questioned at all. She remembered the humiliation, but more than that, she remembered the promise she made afterward. One day, she would build companies where dignity did not depend on appearing believable. Now she sat inside one of those companies, watching the same judgment move through the cabin wearing a polished smile. My finances are not available for your inspection, Evelyn said. Neither is my worth. Gregory folded his arms. Then do not expect me to believe you belong here. Hannah's device vibrated. A new notice appeared beneath Evelyn's name. Executive Operations Arrival Pending. Hannah looked toward the open aircraft door. Footsteps were approaching through the jet bridge. Laura saw the update too, but she did not yet understand it. Gregory smiled, certain that someone from corporate was finally coming to support him. Evelyn reopened her tablet and glanced at the service audit waiting beneath her signature. Good, she said quietly. Now someone can explain who has truly misunderstood this cabin. The footsteps reached the aircraft door, followed by the soft sound of a radio and the measured voices of airport operations staff. Laura straightened her uniform. Gregory adjusted his jacket and sat taller, wearing the expression of a man who believed authority had finally arrived to validate him. Evelyn remained in seat 1A, her tablet open across her lap, the confidential service audit still waiting beneath her signature. The first person to enter was Marcus Hale, Horizon Crown's Director of In-Flight Operations, followed by Station Manager Denise Parker. Marcus looked toward Laura first. We received an executive service alert connected to this cabin. Laura lowered her voice. There is a seating dispute. Mr. Whitman requested a different seat, and Miss Brooks has refused the accommodation we offered. Hannah stared at her. The description transformed Gregory's discrimination into a neutral disagreement and Evelyn's refusal to surrender into the obstacle. Denise opened the passenger manifest on her tablet. Was seat 1A assigned incorrectly? No, Hannah said before Laura could answer. It was purchased directly. No upgrade. No reassignment. Gregory rose again. That is not the issue. I asked for another seat because this situation is unacceptable. Marcus looked at him. What specifically is unacceptable? Gregory gestured toward Evelyn without meeting her eyes. I paid for a premium experience. I should not have to defend my preferences in front of an entire cabin. The woman in row 2 closed her book. Your preference was moving a black woman out of first class. Gregory turned toward her. That is not what I said. You asked her to prove she could afford the seat. The man across the aisle added. Denise began entering notes. Gregory's confidence shifted. He had expected employees. Instead, he had found witnesses. Laura stepped closer to Marcus. I was trying to resolve the situation before it caused a delay. Hannah held up the handheld manifest. She offered to move Miss Brooks to business class even though Mr. Whitman caused the disruption. Marcus looked at Laura. Did you confirm the executive code attached to seat 1A? Laura hesitated. Hannah mentioned it, but I did not believe it affected the seating issue. It affected whether you followed required handling procedures. Gregory gave a dismissive laugh. Why does everyone keep talking about codes? Either she bought the seat or she did not. Evelyn looked up. You were shown that I bought it. Then why are executives arriving for you? He asked. Because people who belong here do not usually need this much protection. The sentence settled over the cabin, colder than the air from the vents. Evelyn studied him for one long moment. You keep confusing protection with accountability. Gregory stepped toward the aisle. I want her identification checked in front of everyone. I want the payment record verified. If everything is legitimate, then perhaps I will reconsider. Marcus's expression hardened. You do not have authority to request another passenger's financial records. I have the authority to decide what makes me comfortable. No, Evelyn said. You have the freedom to reveal what makes you uncomfortable. She rose slowly from seat 1A, holding the tablet against her side. At 5 feet 6 inches, she did not tower over Gregory, but her stillness made him step back. Laura looked toward Marcus, uncertain now. Hannah watched the gold code on her device change to a new status. Founder Office Review active. Denise saw it too. Marcus, she said quietly, you need to open the restricted profile. Gregory folded his arms. Finally, Marcus entered his credentials and waited as the profile loaded. His eyes moved across the screen, then stopped. The shift in his face was immediate. He looked at Evelyn, then at Laura, then back at the tablet. Miss Brooks, he said carefully, would you like me to place the flight on an operational hold? Gregory's smile disappeared. Laura stared at him. Why would she decide that? Evelyn looked toward the aircraft door, where the jet bridge remained connected and boarding staff waited for instructions. Then she returned her gaze to Gregory. Not yet, she said. I want everyone in this cabin to hear what happens when prejudice is given one final chance to correct itself. Evelyn remained standing beside seat 1A while Marcus held the restricted profile open on his tablet. Laura tried to read the screen from several feet away, but Marcus turned it slightly toward himself. Mr. Whitman, Evelyn said, you have been shown a valid seat assignment, a confirmed purchase, and verified executive access. Do you still believe I should leave first class? Gregory looked around the cabin, searching for a response that would preserve his pride. I believe the airline should respect the comfort of its highest-paying customers. The woman in row 2 shook her head. She is also a paying customer. Gregory ignored her. This has become a performance. She clearly arranged for executives to appear so she could embarrass me. Evelyn's expression did not change. You embarrassed yourself before anyone arrived. Laura stepped forward. Perhaps we should pause this conversation and continue privately at the gate. Evelyn looked at her. Why privately? Laura hesitated. To protect passenger dignity. You did not protect mine when he demanded my financial records in front of everyone. Hannah lowered the manifest, her face tense but determined. She is right. Laura turned sharply. Hannah, that is enough. No, Evelyn said. She has spoken accurately every time you tried to silence her. Gregory exhaled with visible irritation and reached toward the shared console between the seats. His hand caught the edge of Evelyn's unopened sparkling water, tipping the glass across the tray table. Water spread over the surface and splashed onto the sleeve of her black sweater. A gasp moved through the cabin. Gregory looked at the spill, then back at Evelyn. Maybe now you will stop turning this into a crusade. The remark pulled her backward through 20 years of memory. She was 26, standing in a hotel lobby after presenting a business plan to investors who had praised her numbers but asked whether a more polished spokesperson could represent the company. She remembered returning to her room alone, opening a notebook, and writing the first principles of the airline she would one day build. Dignity without conditions. Service without suspicion. Leadership without prejudice. Those words had become Horizon Crown's founding standard. Now, inside the first aircraft cabin designed around that promise, a passenger had spilled water across her table while a senior employee searched for reasons to accommodate him. Hannah stepped forward with a clean linen cloth. Miss Brooks, I am sorry. Evelyn accepted it and dried her sleeve with slow, careful movements. Marcus's expression hardened. Mr. Whitman, return to your seat and stop interfering with her space. Gregory remained standing. Do not speak to me like I am the problem. Denise looked directly at him. You are blocking the aisle, disrupting boarding, and continuing to harass another passenger after repeated warnings. Gregory lifted his platinum card. I have been loyal to this airline for 16 years. Evelyn placed the cloth on the tray. Loyalty does not purchase permission to degrade people. Laura tried once more. Miss Brooks, if you would allow us to move Mr. Whitman, we could end this. Evelyn looked at her carefully. You had that option from the beginning. Instead, you offered to move me. The distinction settled across the cabin. Marcus closed the restricted profile and stepped toward the galley. I am requesting an operational hold through flight control. Gregory's confidence finally began to crack. Over spilled water? Evelyn picked up her phone. No. Over a documented pattern of discrimination, improper crew response, and disruptive conduct. She called Horizon Crown's general counsel. The line connected immediately. Evelyn, a woman answered. I have been expecting your call. Gregory stared at her. Laura's face lost its color. Evelyn kept her gaze on both of them. Rachel, preserve the manifest, cabin reports, passenger statements, and service records for Flight 608. Ask flight operations to hold departure pending executive review. The cabin became silent except for the low hum of ventilation. Gregory looked toward Marcus. Who is she? Marcus glanced at the founder profile, then at the airline emblem above the cabin door. You were given every opportunity to learn that without needing her title, he said. Now you are about to learn it with consequences. The operational hold appeared across the cabin system within seconds. Laura's tablet vibrated, Marcus's radio sounded, and the departure clock above the galley stopped counting down. Rachel Shaw, Horizon Crown's general counsel, remained on the phone with Evelyn. The manifest is preserved, she said. Flight operations has received the hold request. Corporate ethics and passenger conduct are joining the review. Gregory looked toward the open aircraft door as if he might still escape the consequences by calling the entire incident a misunderstanding. This is unbelievable, he said. One spilled drink and suddenly the flight is held hostage. Evelyn folded the linen cloth and placed it beside the wet tray. The drink was not the beginning. It was the moment you stopped pretending this was only about a seat. Denise entered the time of the spill into her incident report. The woman in row 2 gave her name as Carol Bennett and described Gregory's first demand word for word. The man across the aisle identified himself as Thomas Reed and confirmed that Evelyn had remained seated until Gregory challenged her right to be there. Hannah added the repeated attempts to verify Evelyn's executive code. Each statement removed another place for Gregory to hide. Laura looked toward Marcus. "Can we move Mr. Whitman to another cabin and continue boarding?" Marcus shook his head. "Passenger conduct must determine whether he remains on the flight." Gregory's voice rose. "I am standing right here. You do not discuss me like I am dangerous." Denise met his gaze. "You have repeatedly blocked the aisle, harassed another passenger, demanded access to private financial information, and ignored instructions to return to your seat. Because no one was listening to me." Evelyn looked at him. Everyone listened. They simply stopped agreeing. Rachel's voice returned through the phone. "Evelyn, the chief operating officer, is on the jet bridge. She has reviewed the founder profile and the preliminary witness notes." Laura stared at Evelyn. "Founder profile?" The question came out barely above a whisper. Hannah looked down at her handheld device, where the gold code had expanded into a restricted heading. "Founder and chairwoman, Horizon Crown Airlines." Gregory saw only the change in their faces. "What is happening?" he asked. Footsteps approached from the jet bridge. Dana Foster, Horizon Crown's chief operating officer, entered with a representative from passenger conduct and a reserve lead attendant. She did not greet Gregory first. She walked directly to Evelyn. "Ms. Brooks, flight operations has confirmed the hold, and the executive review is active." Gregory blinked. "Ms. Brooks." Dana turned toward the cabin. "For clarity, this is Evelyn Brooks, founder and chairwoman of Horizon Crown Airlines." Silence moved through first class like a sudden loss of pressure. Laura's hand lowered from her tablet. Gregory stared at Evelyn, then at the airline emblem above the cabin door, as though he had finally noticed that the same crown symbol appeared beside her name on Marcus's screen. "You founded the airline?" he asked. Evelyn stood beside seat 1A, her sweater sleeve still damp, her expression unchanged. "I founded an airline where no passenger would be asked to prove their dignity before receiving service." Gregory stepped back towards seat 1B. "Had I known who you were, I would never have spoken that way." Evelyn's gaze sharpened. "That is not an apology. That is an admission that respect, to you, depends on power." Laura lowered her eyes. "Ms. Brooks, I did not understand the situation. You understood enough to offer my seat to the man humiliating me." Dana turned toward the passenger conduct representative. "Mr. Whitman will leave the aircraft pending review. Laura Mills will be removed from active duty for this flight and report to station operations." Gregory looked around for support, but every witness remained still. Evelyn did not smile. She had not revealed her title to win an argument. She had revealed a system that worked differently depending on who appeared powerful. "The worst failure in this cabin," she said, "was not that you did not know who I was. It was that you believed I had to be someone important before the truth mattered." Gregory remained beside seat 1B, but the confidence that had filled the cabin minutes earlier was gone. Dana Foster stood near the aisle with the passenger conduct representative, while the reserve lead attendant waited at the galley for instructions. Laura held her tablet against her uniform, her posture smaller now that every decision had been placed beside the evidence. Evelyn remained beside seat 1A, her damp sleeve visible beneath the cabin lights. "Mr. Whitman," Dana said, "please collect your belongings. A gate representative will explain the review process outside the aircraft." Gregory looked toward Evelyn. "You are removing me because I asked for another seat?" Evelyn answered before Dana could. "You are being removed because you continued harassing a passenger, blocked the aisle, demanded private financial information, ignored crew instructions, and disrupted boarding after repeated warnings." Gregory tightened his grip on his carry-on handle. "You are using your position to punish me." Evelyn's voice stayed level. "No, My position allowed the facts to reach people who could no longer ignore them. Carol Bennett nodded from row 2. Thomas Reed remained seated across the aisle, watching Gregory carefully. Hannah stood near the galley with the manifest still open, her expression composed despite the pressure surrounding her. Gregory turned toward the witnesses. You all heard only one side. Thomas looked at him. We heard every word from the beginning, Carol added. She did not raise her voice until after you demanded proof of her money. Gregory looked toward Laura. You offered to move her. Tell them that was reasonable. Laura lowered her eyes for a moment, then faced him. It was not reasonable. The answer surprised everyone. Gregory stared at her. You were trying to help me. I was trying to end the conflict quickly, Laura said. I chose the easiest person to inconvenience instead of confronting the person causing the harm. Evelyn watched her without softening. Honesty did not erase the failure, but it was the first step away from denial. Dana turned toward Laura. You will report to station operations and provide a complete statement. Your removal from this flight is temporary pending review. Laura nodded. Understood. Gregory lifted his platinum card again. I have been a Crown Premier member for 16 years. This airline has made thousands of dollars from me. Evelyn looked at the card. Then the company had 16 years to teach you that loyalty benefits do not include control over another person's dignity. The passenger conduct representative stepped closer. Mr. Whitman, we need to clear the aisle. Gregory pulled his carry-on from the overhead compartment and placed it beside him. As he passed Evelyn's row, he stopped. You set this up. You dressed down and waited for someone to make a mistake. Evelyn held his gaze. I boarded as myself. You made the mistake because you believed someone like me could not belong in the seat beside you. Gregory's face tightened. Had you introduced yourself, none of this would have happened. My valid ticket was my introduction. He had no answer. He followed the representative toward the aircraft door, the platinum card disappearing into his pocket as the jet bridge swallowed the authority he had tried to perform. No applause followed him. The cabin remained quiet, not celebratory, but awake. Laura then handed her service tablet to the reserve lead attendant and prepared to leave. Before stepping into the aisle, she looked at Evelyn. I am sorry. Evelyn studied her carefully. Do not apologize because you learned my title. Explain what you will do when the next passenger has no title to reveal. Laura looked toward Hannah. I will listen when a junior employee presents verified facts. I will refuse discriminatory seating demands immediately. And I will stop treating the targeted passenger as the easiest problem to move. Evelyn gave one measured nod. That is where repair begins. Dana turned to Rachel's voice still active on Evelyn's phone. Corporate ethics has preserved the records. What additional action do you want? Evelyn looked around the first-class cabin, at the witnesses, the empty seat beside hers, and the gold airline emblem above the door. Open every premium service complaint from the last 2 years that was closed as a misunderstanding. I want to know how many people were asked to move so someone else's prejudice could remain comfortable. The request moved through Horizon Crown's legal and ethics systems before the aircraft door had closed again. Rachel Shaw confirmed that every premium cabin complaint marked as a misunderstanding would be reopened, including cases involving forced seat changes, selective ticket verification, and employees who had ignored discriminatory remarks to protect departure times. Dana Foster listened through Evelyn's phone, then repeated the order into her own radio so no one could later claim confusion. All related records are now under executive preservation, she said. No files will be altered, reassigned, or closed without independent review. Evelyn returned to seat 1A, but she did not reopen the service audit. The empty seat beside her had become evidence of something larger than Gregory Whitman's behavior. He had spoken the prejudice aloud, but the system had nearly rewarded it with a quieter solution. Laura had offered to move Evelyn, a valid customer, a confirmed passenger, the person who had done nothing wrong. That was the pattern Evelyn intended to expose. Hannah remained near the galley as the reserve lead attendant, Monica Hayes, took control of the cabin. Monica was a black woman in her early 50s with 27 years of in-flight experience and a voice that carried calm without surrender. She reviewed the manifest, confirmed the operational hold, and addressed the passengers. "We apologize for the delay. Boarding will resume shortly after the required safety and conduct review is complete." No one complained. Even the passengers who had watched from farther back seemed to understand that the delay was no longer an inconvenience. It was the cost of finally refusing an easier injustice. Dana approached Hannah. "You documented the executive code before anyone else responded?" Hannah nodded. "I recognized it from training." "And you raised the issue with the lead attendant?" "Twice." "Why did you continue after being ordered back to the galley?" Hannah looked toward Evelyn. "Because the facts were clear, and no one else was saying them clearly." Evelyn heard the answer. "That is leadership," she said. Hannah's eyes widened. "I was only doing what the policy required. Policies do not enforce themselves. People decide whether the truth is worth the discomfort." Dana entered a note into the incident file. "Hannah will be listed as a protected witness. No scheduling or performance action may be taken against her for speaking during this event." Relief passed across Hannah's face, but it was followed by something stronger. "What happens to Laura?" she asked. Evelyn answered honestly. "She receives due process. Her decisions will be reviewed, her history will be examined, and she will have the opportunity to explain what she understood and why she acted as she did." "Will she lose her job?" "Accountability is not theater," Evelyn said. "We will not decide punishment before we understand the pattern. But we will not hide the pattern to protect the company's image." Dana nodded. "The same applies to Mr. Whitman. His loyalty account and travel privileges will be reviewed under the passenger conduct policy." From the jet bridge, a gate agent entered and quietly removed Gregory's name from the active passenger list. Seat 1B became officially vacant. Monica offered to reseat another traveler beside Evelyn, but Evelyn declined. "Leave it empty." Monica glanced at the damp sleeve and the stained tray. "Would you prefer another seat?" Evelyn gave a faint, tired smile. "No. Seat 1A was never the problem." Marcus returned from the cockpit. "The captain has been briefed. Flight operations can release the hold when you are ready." "Evelyn, the cabin is secure. We are ready to continue boarding." Evelyn nodded. "Then continue." As passengers began moving through the door again, Hannah welcomed each person with the same steady respect, regardless of clothing, status, or seat number. Evelyn watched her and understood that the real victory was not that a founder had been recognized. It was that a junior employee had refused to let dignity depend on recognition. Boarding resumed with a different energy. Passengers stepped into the cabin more quietly, aware that something serious had happened but uncertain of the full story. Monica Hayes welcomed each traveler with steady professionalism, while Hannah checked boarding passes and assisted with carry-on bags. No one was rushed. No one was treated like an obstacle. Evelyn remained in seat 1A, watching the company's standards either return to life or fail in front of her. Dana stood near the galley, reviewing the first results from the reopened complaint archive. Her expression changed as she scrolled. "We already have 12 cases with the same pattern," she said quietly. Premium passengers objected to sitting beside black travelers or questioned whether they belonged in the cabin. In 9 cases, employees moved the targeted passenger. Evelyn looked at her. How were those complaints closed? Service recovery completed. Customer accommodated. Misunderstanding resolved. Whose misunderstanding? Dana did not answer immediately. The records do not say. Evelyn looked toward the empty seat beside her. That is how bias disappears inside corporate language. The person causing the harm becomes the customer. The person moved becomes the solution. Rachel remained connected by phone. I am expanding the review beyond premium cabins. Lounge access, upgrade disputes, boarding challenges, and identity verification. Include employee retaliation reports, Evelyn said, especially cases where junior staff raised concerns and were later marked difficult or insubordinate. Hannah heard the words from the galley and paused. Dana noticed. Have you experienced that? Hannah hesitated, then nodded. 3 months ago, I reported a passenger who made comments about a black family in business class. I was told I had escalated too quickly. Was anything placed in your file? A coaching note. Dana looked at Evelyn. We will preserve it. Evelyn's voice remained calm, but the decision carried weight. Review every coaching note tied to bias complaints. Courage should not become a performance problem. Marcus returned with confirmation from flight operations. The hold can be released. Estimated departure is 23 minutes late. Evelyn glanced around the cabin. Passengers were seated. Bins were closed. Monica had completed her checks. Hannah stood near the aircraft door, no longer shrinking beneath Laura's authority. Release it, Evelyn said. Marcus transmitted the instruction. The departure clock resumed. Outside the window, ground crews moved beneath the evening lights, unaware that the airline above them had begun changing before leaving the gate. Dana sat briefly in seat 1B to speak with Evelyn. Public relations will want a statement. Not tonight. They will worry about the story reaching social media. Evelyn turned toward her. Then they should worry about why the story happened, not who recorded it. Dana nodded. What do you want announced internally? Evelyn considered the question. A temporary rule effective immediately. No passenger may be moved in response to another passenger's discriminatory objection. Any identity or payment challenge must be based on documented security concerns, not personal suspicion. Any employee who reports bias receives protected status until review is complete. Dana entered each directive. And Laura? Her case remains under review. She admitted the decision was wrong. That matters, but it does not erase the decision. And Gregory? Passenger conduct will determine his travel status. The process must be fair, even when his behavior was not. Monica approached and leaned slightly toward Evelyn. The cabin is secure. We are ready to close the door. Evelyn looked at Hannah. Who verified the final manifest? Monica smiled. Hannah did. Evelyn gave a small nod. Then closed the door. Hannah stepped forward and pulled it shut with both hands. The seal engaged. The noise of the terminal disappeared. For the first time since Gregory had entered the cabin, the space became peaceful. Hannah turned toward the passengers and began the safety announcement with a clear voice. Evelyn listened without looking at her tablet. The flight had not yet moved, but Horizon Crown had already crossed a line it could never uncross. The company would now have to choose whether this moment became an isolated correction or the beginning of a new standard. The aircraft pushed back from the gate beneath a deep blue evening sky. Its cabin lights dimmed as Horizon Crown Flight 608 began moving toward the runway. Evelyn sat quietly in seat 1A while the empty seat beside her remained untouched. Outside the window, terminal lights stretched across the glass like a line of distant stars. Inside the cabin, Hannah completed the final safety check and returned to the galley, where Monica gave her a small nod of approval. It was not applause. It was recognition. The kind that came from doing the right thing when silence would have been easier. Dana remained seated several rows behind Evelyn, still reviewing the early findings from the reopened cases. Before the aircraft reached the runway, another message arrived from Rachel Shaw. 27 premium service complaints had now been flagged for independent review. 11 involved passengers being moved after discriminatory objections. 6 involved unnecessary demands for identification or payment verification. For included employees who had reported concerns and later received negative coaching notes. Evelyn read the summary once, then locked her phone. The numbers did not surprise her. What unsettled her was how ordinary the language had made each failure appear. Customer preference, service recovery, cabin comfort, operational efficiency. Words polished until no one could see who had been asked to surrender their dignity. The captain's voice came through the speakers, announcing a short taxi and clear weather ahead. The aircraft turned toward the runway. Evelyn felt the engines build beneath her feet. 20 years earlier, Horizon Crown had existed only in a notebook filled with routes, financing estimates, and one sentence written across the first page. Dignity will never be an upgrade. She had built the airline because travel had taught her how quickly people confused price with worth. She had promised that her company would be different. Now she understood that a promise written by a founder could still be weakened by habits, shortcuts, and fear unless people were trained to defend it in real time. The aircraft lifted from the runway, climbing above the city lights. Hannah began service several minutes later. When she reached seat 1A, she offered Evelyn a fresh sparkling water. "Thank you," Evelyn said. Hannah placed it carefully on the tray. "I was afraid I would lose my job today." Evelyn looked at her. "You should never have to choose between your job and the truth. Sometimes it feels like junior employees are expected to notice everything and challenge nothing. That changes now." Hannah hesitated. "Will it really?" Evelyn looked toward the dark horizon beyond the window. "Only if we build consequences into the promise." By the time the flight reached cruising altitude, Dana had drafted the first internal directive. Effective immediately, discriminatory seating requests would be documented as conduct incidents, not customer preferences. Employees who challenged bias would receive protected reporting status. Premium cabin complaints would be reviewed by an independent ethics team. Managers would be measured not only by departure performance, but by whether they protected passenger dignity under pressure. Evelyn approved each point, then added one final sentence. No passenger should need wealth, status, or a corporate title to be believed. 3 weeks later, the board adopted the reforms across every Horizon Crown route. Laura Mills completed a formal review, received corrective training, and returned under monitored supervision after accepting responsibility for her decisions. Gregory Whitman's travel privileges were suspended pending completion of the passenger conduct process. Hannah's coaching note was removed, and she was invited to join a new employee advisory council focused on fairness in service. The company did not release Evelyn's name in a public statement. She refused to turn the incident into a celebration of her power. The lesson was not that Gregory had insulted the wrong woman. The lesson was that no woman should have to own the airline before someone defended her right to sit in peace. Months later, Evelyn boarded another flight without an entourage, wearing the same simple black sweater and carrying the same canvas tote. A new attendant welcomed her, checked her boarding pass, and smiled. No suspicion, no hesitation, no special treatment, just respect. Evelyn took her seat and looked out at the runway. First class could be purchased. Dignity could not.